And here we go. Here it is. It is draft season. It is draft time. What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, coming to you a little bit later than I thought I would. Thought I would be on probably around 3:30 is what I thought. And here I'm checking in at 4:15, getting everything up and running, getting all my notes put together, making sure that everything is up to snuff for what is about to take place. What is about to take place is my 2019 first round NFL mock draft. I think that this is as good as a mock as I've ever done. We'll see what the results speak for themselves. There's been some years where I've hit on a lot of picks, and there's been some years where I haven't hit on picks. And I'm referring to the art of predicting which team will take which player. And first, we're going to start off number one, the first overall pick. The team that holds the first overall pick, we'll just get right to it, is the Arizona Cardinals. There are a lot of very interesting layers and dynamics to the storylines that surround this first overall pick, which is oftentimes the case. Some years it hasn't been. Some years we already know who the team is going to take. But this year, I can't say with 100% certainty that I know who the Arizona Cardinals would take, but I do have a pretty good idea on who they will take. Is it who I think they should take? That is another question for another day. And if this idea comes to fruition, we'll talk about that at some point later on. But for now, for the sake of this 45-minute edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, the 2019 first-round NFL mock draft, which you guys are tuning in live on Twitter, you guys are tuning in live on YouTube, you guys are tuning in live on Facebook, and I appreciate all the love and support from the sports fans from all throughout the world, all throughout the country. But let's just get right to it, all right? Let's just dive right into it. Who do I think the Arizona Cardinals will select first overall? I think the pick will be one of great controversy, will be one of great debate for many years to come, and it will be one that will leave the NFL fans not necessarily speechless, but just dumbfounded that this situation will play itself out. I see the Arizona Cardinals selecting Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray, and I think that will play itself out. Now, one of two things here could happen. Let's just play devil's advocate for just a moment and say to ourselves, one of two things could happen here. The Arizona Cardinals on draft day, first pick overall, will select Kyler Murray, or they will select Kyler Murray, which would then afford them the opportunity to trade Josh Rosen. And some teams that I'd like to lay out for the viewers and listeners as far as teams that Josh Rosen could find himself on would be the Washington Redskins, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants. Those are three teams that really jump out at me that would be in line for that trade. A sleeper team, maybe a bit of a wild card team would also be the New England Patriots. I could see them swooping in and taking Josh Rosen off the hands of the Arizona Cardinals, and then the Patriots would have a backup plan to Tom Brady, which was something that they traded away to San Francisco in the form of Jimmy Garoppolo. The other option would be that the Arizona Cardinals will trade this pick to a team that would really want Kyler Murray. Now, I think that this is really crazy that we could see a scenario play itself out where a team traded up for a quarterback in Josh Rosen in last year's draft, the Arizona Cardinals trade up for Josh Rosen, and then 1 year later, one draft later, they select Kyler Murray with the first overall pick. I could easily see it happening, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be dumbfounded if in fact it actually does come to fruition. I think that these two parties, Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals, they've been linked to one another for a wide variety of reasons, and those reasons say that we'll definitely see Cliff Kingsbury gloat over Kyler Murray from now until the draft process. In fact, throughout the draft process, prior to Cliff Kingsbury being named the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, he was gloating about Kyler Murray, saying that if he was a coach and they had the number one pick, he'd take him. So reap what you sow, I guess. It's pretty ironic that this is the this is the way that fate played itself out. Let me just throw this in there, and I want to focus on the first overall pick for only a little bit because we only have so much time. With Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, if they do in fact decide to take Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals offensive line is so bad. That was something that Josh Rosen couldn't. That wasn't his fault that the offensive line was as bad as it was. They spent the least amount of money across all 32 or 31, in this case, clubs in the National Football League on their offensive line. Arizona spent the least amount of money. So I think that this is a situation that, whether they have Kyler Murray under center or not, they're not really in the best of spots. They're not really in a great position in this draft. So let's just throw that out there. But I do ultimately think that they will take him. And if they don't, we'll see what happens. San Francisco 49ers, I think this pick is going to come down to Nick Bosa or Quinnen Williams. Charlie Campbell reported about a month ago that the 49ers really liked Quinnen Williams, and I think that will ultimately be a possibility. I think Nick Bosa's injury questions are a little bit too much for San Fran. But if it were me, I would ignore that. This is one of those if it were me picks. I would take Nick Bosa because I feel like Nick Bosa actually fills a bigger need at defensive end. He's a very electrifying player. And we'll see what happens. One dynamic that is very interesting that we've seen play itself out in these drafts is players and their tweeting. Players tweeting things politically or political or whatever, where Nick Bosa tweeted a lot of pro-President Trump tweets and a lot of anti-Colin Kaepernick tweets. Those tweets were deleted during this draft process, so I'm wondering if maybe San Francisco 49ers officials reached out, or just Nick Bosa's officials in general, his entourage in general, just said to him, hey, you need to delete these. I think that that's what happened, but maybe a little bit of both. Either way, I do see Nick Bosa going second overall, but I do think the best defensive player in this draft is probably a tie between Quinnen and Nick Bosa. Obviously, Ed Oliver as well. We'll talk a little bit about him momentarily. Let me take my swig of water here. So, Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle out of Bama, guy that I just said is one of the best defensive players in this draft. The New York Jets hold the third overall selection. This is a pick that I could easily see being traded down, but will the Jets do that? Only time will tell, but let's just, for the sake of it, just say to ourselves, no, it won't be traded down, and the Jets will pick third overall. I'm not going to play any trade scenarios. I'm going to play it as if all these picks are where they are. I want to look at this as if each team stays and each team selects whatever player I think they should. I think the Jets will take a defensive player. I know they just brought in Adam Gase. I know they just put some offensive firepower on that side of the ball with Le'Veon Bell, with Jamison Crowder, which I really think is one of the more underrated free agent additions this offseason, a guy that measures out in the slot and plays very, very well, was doing really big things in Washington up until Alex Smith's injury and had some really good years with Kirk Cousins. So really a player that I think is essentially coming into his own, and someone that I really would have loved for my Buffalo fandom reasons, would have really loved to see Buffalo pull the trigger on that gentleman, but they were unable to make that happen. And Jamison Crowder is a New York Jet. But I think they will go defense here. I think Quinnen Williams will be the pick. Too much of a talent to pass up, but I think if there was any team in the top 5 that was most likely to trade down, it will be the Jets, especially if Nick Bosa isn't available. You really harken back to last year. They do not have a second-round pick due to the fact that they traded it to get Sam Darnold. So chances are they'll want to acquire another pick to get that capital back. Plus, a team might move up for Quinnen Williams. So we'll see what happens. But my pick is Quinnen Williams. 4th overall, the first of 3 draft selections for the Oakland Raiders, and there's a lot of speculation that the Raiders are going to take a quarterback with this pick. I think Gruden prefers the veteran signal caller, though. I think Derek Carr has way too much influence on that team's decision-making, and I think that they're going to fix their horrible pass rush with this pick, and I think they're going to go with the defensive player Josh Allen. Josh Allen, a guy that I think will be very good at this next level, just like the quarterback Josh Allen. Josh Allen out of Kentucky, defensive end, linebacker, one of the better pass rushers in this year's draft. Really, I can look at this from a few different directions with this next pick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have new head coach Bruce Arians on board. They have a lot of interesting pieces in front of them, and this pick pains me, to be quite honest, but I'm looking at this from a talent perspective, from a need perspective. I have Ed Oliver going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would love it if Ed Oliver would have lasted to 9th overall and fall to my Buffalo Bills, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the talent will be seen. The talent has been seen. And with Gerald McCoy's impending situation there, they have to replace that player with something. And I think Ed Oliver is just as good as Gerald McCoy in some ways, if not better in other ways. I think Tampa Bay will take Ed Oliver, which would lead me to my next pick, the 6th overall pick, the first selection in the first round out of 2 selections in the first round from the New York Giants. And I have the Giants selecting Rashawn Gary, which would be a big surprise to some people because a lot of people think that they should take a quarterback here. Dwayne Haskins has largely been put out there for the Giants to take as far as a quarterback, as far as the future of the franchise. I don't think the Giants are sold on any of these quarterbacks. Maybe Haskins is a possibility, but I think Rashawn Gary would fill one of the biggest needs outside a quarterback on the Giants team at defensive end, and you really need one with that 3-man front in New York City / East Rutherford, New Jersey, where the Giants play. Gary, an extremely productive player at Michigan, or wasn't extremely productive, I should say, but he has a lot of talent, a lot of upside, a lot of physical tools that could make him that at the next level. Jacksonville Jaguars, this is where you start to see just a basic X and O's pick here, a pick that I think makes a whole ton of sense. You look at what the Jaguars have done this offseason, they just spent a lot of money on Nick Foles, and I think if you spend that much money on a quarterback, you got to protect him. You got to get a lineman in here that would do the job and do it well. I think this pick could be one of 2 people. Could be Juwan Taylor out of Florida, or it could be Jonah Williams out of Bama. Take your pick. Juwan Taylor mostly lined up at right tackle in Florida, but then eventually played a little bit of left, but was really projected as a left tackle in this draft process and practiced as such during the scouting combine. So I'm very interested to see who goes first in terms of the tackles, because I think whoever gets picked first, a domino will fall. But ultimately, I have the Jaguars selecting offensive tackle Juwan Taylor out of Florida, where he wouldn't have to move too far, heading to Jacksonville to protect the blind side of Nick Foles, who the Jaguars really want to sustain his career. They really want his career to continue. So the next pick, which would be the 8th pick, belongs to the Detroit Lions. And outside of the top 5, with the Jets at 3, I think this is another team that could potentially trade down, a team that really essentially needs to trade down. They have a lot of needs and not enough picks to fill those holes. So sliding down, let's just say 8 to 10 spots, or let's not say 8 to 10, 4 to 10 spots, and selecting, a decent player would not be out of the realm of possibility. But I think that you look at what they need. I'm going to go with defensive end Brian Burns out of Florida State. This is a guy that is seen as more of a top 20 prospect, but with his upside, he has a very high ceiling, very high floor, high character, works really hard, team captain, which would appeal to a team like the Lions, who are really trying to reshape the culture of their franchise with new coach Matt Patricia heading into his second year, so he's not really that new, but somebody nonetheless that could go 8th overall. Which leads me to my next team at 15 minutes and 30 seconds. My next team, your favorite team, my favorite team, circle the wagons, the Buffalo Bills, picking 9th overall in this year's draft. And yeah, Ed Oliver's off the board. Yeah, Jawaan Taylor is off the board. So really you look at the board and try to track who's available and why could I see Buffalo taking one of these three players at this pick. Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State, Jonah Williams, a tackle out of Bama, as well as Devin White, a linebacker out of LSU, as well as TJ Hawkinson, a tight end out of Iowa. That is something that I think all three of those possibilities are there. But if I look at who could really do the job, if it's not Ed Oliver, I think that you do have to address the defensive side of the ball with a first-round pick in Montez Sweat. I think if Jawaan Taylor was available here, he'd be highly possible as well because Buffalo has visited with him a lot. Ed Oliver would be possible here because Buffalo has visited with him a lot, but they visited with Montez Sweat a lot as well. And there are a lot of signs that point to the fact that the Bills are going to take an edge rusher. They've spent a lot of time and energy scouting edge rushers this offseason. The red flag with Montez Sweat was that he was flagged for a heart condition, but it seems as though he's all right. So there is that. But, okay, let's just play devil's advocate a little bit for the Buffalo Bills fans that I know that will be playing devil's advocate with me and saying, why do you think they should take a defensive player? I think that they've addressed throughout their offseason, the offensive side of the ball. They've reshaped the entire offense. They could continue to do so with the first-round pick, with the 9th overall pick, and I wouldn't really be upset by it if they took a Hawkinson or a Metcalf or traded down and took somebody. I wouldn't really be hurt by that, but I'm speaking hypothetically as if they're picking 9th overall, and I think Montez Sweat is one of the better pass rushers in this draft and the best player available at this pick. TJ Hawkinson, probably the best offensive player available at this pick, which I could definitely see Buffalo taking him. Tyler Kroft brought in this offseason, Jason Kroom, a bill over the last couple seasons. I could definitely see TJ Hawkinson being a possibility as well as DK Metcalf here. But for now, I have Montez Sweat picked by the Buffalo Bills. Great edge rusher, a lot of talent, a lot of upside. 10th overall, the Denver Broncos. I've been really kind of looking at my board and erasing a quarterback and rewriting a quarterback and erasing and rewriting a quarterback. The Broncos have had so many problems finding a quarterback since Peyton Manning, since he walked out the door and said Omaha out, all that stuff. They've had a real tough time finding a quarterback. I think Drew Lock could be very possible here, should be very possible, should be somebody that Denver should look at. But I think that there's just so much talent in this draft defensively that it's very, very tough to see them pass on a defensive player. And there are a lot of writers out there that have reported that Denver isn't really sold on Drew Lock just yet. So I think that a linebacker is not out of question here, and I think Devin White would fit that bill. The Broncos really dating back to Danny Trevathan leaving for Chicago. I think that that's something that they should look into. Devin White had 133 tackles last season, and in 2017 he was phenomenal. So Very excited for the Broncos with this pick. I think that would really help them a lot if they were to take Devin White. 11th overall. Here's where you see the quarterback, number 2, fall off the board with Drew Lock. Andy Dalton is not as good as most people think he is. I know he saved the Bills and helped them make the playoffs, but Andy Dalton is not that great. And furthermore, let's just say if he was that great, there is something called time, and is Andy Dalton the oldest guy? No, but he's pretty expensive. 32 years old, he's doing average about $17 million per year over the next 2 years before his contract expires. When you see a new regime, you see things change, you see pieces get moved around. And I think Andy Dalton is actually the next victim of that. I wouldn't be shocked if he was gone next season from Cincinnati, which would leave Cincinnati right now with the 11th overall pick to take Drew Lock. Could easily be Dwayne Haskins because of the fact he's got the Ohio State, Cincinnati, Ohio connection. But I think that they will go Drew Lock. Of any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft, I think Lock is my favorite. He has a phenomenal arm. He stands tall in the pocket. But I think his accuracy, anticipation on his throws, maybe a little bit of his vision of seeing the field is not quite there yet. But he's somebody that could sit a year or two, and we'll see what happens. I would rate Lock more of a true late first rounder, early second rounder than a top 11 pick. But we've seen teams reach for quarterbacks and contingency plans multiple times, especially within the last few years. And I could definitely see the Cincinnati Bengals doing that. Green Bay Packers make a Packers-esque pick by taking tight end out of Iowa, TJ Hawkinson. Really, the last few years, they've acquired a lot of talent on their defense. And I think they'll acquire some talent on their offense. Hawkinson, I think, is the best talent. And really, you could flip-flop in my mock draft between Green Bay and Buffalo's pick. Buffalo takes Hawkinson. I could see Sweat going here. If Buffalo takes Sweat, I see Hawkinson going to Green Bay. Oddly enough. Miami is on the clock. They're the 13th overall pick. Miami, I have them taking defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Could easily be an offensive lineman here. Could easily say, a Jonah Williams-esque player could be possible, but I think Christian Wilkins will go there. Andre Dillard, another gentleman that I really like in this draft. He's more of a right tackle, but somebody that I think is a little bit of a polarizing prospect, but somebody that I think could be decent for the Atlanta Falcons at 14. I have Dillard going to the Falcons at 14. Next up, the Washington Redskins, another quarterback pick with the Redskins taking Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke. But if the Cards take Kyler Murray, expect them to call Washington to trade Josh Rosen, and I expect the trade to come to fruition. If not, Daniel Jones will be that guy. If it does come to fruition, I can see DK Metcalf going to the Washington Redskins. 16th overall, the Carolina Panthers. They need a lot of offensive line help. I think I'm going to go with, if I were to say who is available that's on the line, Jonah Williams. I'm going to go with Jonah Williams. I just flipped my page here. I'm going to go with Jonah Williams. Top talent out of Bama. Going to the Carolina Panthers, I think that makes a lot of sense. You lost Cam Newton for a reason. You lost Cam Newton for the fact that he could not stay upright in that pocket, maybe to his own fault. The New York Giants selecting 17th overall. So far, I have the Giants bolstering their defensive line with their selection of Rashawn Gary, 6th overall. And the Giants are very interesting because Dave Gettleman has caught a lot of heat, and rightfully so, for the fact that they traded Odell Beckham Jr. And I'm on that train. I still don't get why they traded him. But I am on the train that Dave Gettleman is on as far as how he looks at the Giants and how he sees them materializing into a better team. How can they become great again? The Giants have a real need on defense, and that is just pure pass rushers. They get one, I think they're going to get another. I think they're going to take a guy that I think is a stud in this draft class, somebody that could easily be picked in the top 10, somebody that easily could be picked in the top 10 that probably won't be, that we'll look back on years from now and wonder why the hell did this guy not go in the top 10. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end, offensive line, or outside offensive linebacker, outside linebacker. So Giants fans be wondering, what the hell is going on? Why are we not taking a quarterback? We need one. Got to build the defense. The defense is a mess. Defense is atrocious. That's what helped Eli Manning win 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, that defense. And the offense has had its additions. Golden Tate, obviously not, jumping for joy. A lot of Giants fans were not really happy about that, but that's an addition. It is an addition, whether they like to admit it or not. You had Saquon. You've added some offensive line help with the Zeitler trade. You have some pieces. You got Nate Solder. You can always go offense the rest of the way, but the first 2 picks for the Giants, I have them going defensive end and defensive end. Really getting some cornerstones on that D-line. Minnesota, I have them taking guard Cody Ford. Tennessee, I have them going guard Garrett Bradbury. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I have them going with a linebacker, Devin Bush out of Michigan. Seattle taking who I think is a very interesting prospect in A.J. Brown. Could easily go offensive, though. Right now there's A.J. Brown for me at 21, Marquise Brown at 22 for the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that the Houston Texans are going to make the reach of the draft in the first round, 23rd overall, taking Greg Little out of Ole Miss. I'm not sold on Greg Little. A lot of people are, but I'm not high on him. The Oakland Raiders, I see Greg Little actually as more of a mid-second round lineman. Had him going to the Bills, oddly enough, in my first Buffalo Bills mock draft on myfantasysportstalk.com. 24th overall, this is the second first-round draft choice for the Oakland Raiders, and I think that they're going to go offense with this one. I think that they're going to go 24th overall. They are going to take a running back by the name of Josh Jacobs out of the University of Alabama. Guys, Josh Jacobs could be a very, very good running back in the National Football League. But rightfully so here, he falls to 24th overall. We do not live in a day and age, unless you're talking about Todd Gurley, unless you're talking about Zeke Elliott, unless you're talking about Christian McCaffrey. We do not live in a day and age where running backs go in the top 10 anymore. We're just not. Josh Jacobs goes 24th, and John Gruden, his offenses are running centered, where he loves to run the ball. Josh Jacobs, an electrifying runner. Philadelphia Eagles, I have them going with Chris Lindstrom, who's a guard from Boston College. And here we are. Here we are. 26th overall. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and they select DK Metcalf. Now, I talked about DK Metcalf quite a lot for Buffalo, but I think he is going to fall, and I think it's mainly because he's very one-dimensional. And, yeah, the combine was cool and all that stuff, but there has been a lot of red flags in terms of his work ethic, and maybe not so much his work ethic. I would say more so his physicality, maybe being his weakness due to the fact that he gets tired over the long haul of a game. So I see DK Metcalf, though, going in the first round still to the Indianapolis Colts. The Oakland Raiders again on the clock, going 4th, 25th, and 27th. 4th overall, I had the Raiders going with, who did I have the Raiders going with 4th overall? Let me go back. Because I thought, did I mess this up? Yeah. I had them going Josh Allen. Josh Allen, defensive Josh Allen, then Josh Jacobs. So 27th overall, I have the Oakland Raiders staying on the offensive side of the ball. They use their first pick on defense, second and third pick on offense. Noah Fant out of Iowa. I think that Fant will be somebody that could definitely see, build a rapport with Derek Carr, and be one of the better tight ends in this league. The guy is a true revelation at tight end. He's really remarkable. The fact that Iowa had not one but two really good tight ends is remarkable. I see Fant going to the Raiders, 27th overall. Los Angeles Chargers going with a secondary pick out of Washington, Byron Murphy, a guy that I really, really like. A guy that I think is one of the smarter players in this draft. A guy that I think maybe came out a little bit too early, but I think somebody that will still be a decent player. Kansas City Chiefs, Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson, defensive tackle. Green Bay Packers, I have a wild card going to Green Bay. A guy that not many people would say, wow, you think he's going to go to Green Bay. Dwayne Haskins, quarterback out of the Ohio State. Yeah, they have Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers is getting older. His durability is a question mark. And getting Dwayne Haskins 30th overall is not a bad it's not a bad option. Guy has skills, but I think he is a little raw. I think he might be a little bit overrated, but I still have Dwayne Haskins going in the first round to the Green Bay Packers. 31st overall, Eric McCoy, and 32nd overall, the Patriots get the Swiss Army knife, Paris Campbell out of the Ohio State. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was my first round mock draft for the 2019 NFL Draft. Buffalo fans, what do you think? I have them taking Montez Sweat. Unfortunately, I think Ed Oliver will be gone. Take care. See you later. Hope you enjoyed the pod.